Good morning, everybody, and welcome to the Statutory Planning Committee meeting of Wednesday, the 4th of June, 2025. To those in person and online, this meeting is live streamed and recorded and is available for viewing via the WAPC website or YouTube. Committee members may refer to devices throughout the meeting to assist them considering the information before them. In opening the meeting, I'd like to acknowledge that we're meeting on the lands of the Whadjuk people of the Noongar Nation and pay our respects to elders past and present. Apologies and leave of absence. We do have two members on a leave of absence, Commissioner Brooks and Member Moore. And attending in person today, we have myself and we have Deputy Chairperson Commissioner Herron, Member Franklin, Member Harmon, Member Knight, Commissioner Lakey. Welcome to you all. And we have Commissioner Adair attending online. Welcome, Commissioner Adair. Moving to item 1.3, disclosure of interests. Many thanks. For item 3.1, the Part 7B development application for multiple dwellings at lot 223 Brown Street in Busselton, Commissioner Herron has declared an indirect pecuniary interest in that. Commissioner Herron advised that Urbis is going to lodge the proposal, and Commissioner Herron, I understand you're not seeking to participate in the item. On item 4.1, City of Nedlands Local Planning Scheme number 3, amendment number 15, Commissioner Herron has declared an indirect pecuniary interest in that the proposal nominates Hesperia as the proponent, but this project is a HU project and Urbis acts for HU on other projects, which is formerly part of Hesperia. So Commissioner Herron, I also understand that you're not seeking to participate in that item. Thank you. On item 4.2, Town of Cambridge Local Planning Scheme number 2, certification to advertise, Commissioner Adair has declared an actual impartiality interest in that. Commissioner Adair advised she was engaged by the owners of Empire Village in relation to matters concerning the town of Cambridge and not directly linked to the new scheme. Commissioner Adair, on that matter, are you seeking to leave the meeting?
I'm happy to leave the meeting, Chair.
But are you just in terms of your preference, so that if you want us to make a determination, or whether you're clearly wanting to be out of the meeting?
Well, I'm happy for the committee to make the decision, if you like.
Okay, so you would participate if the committee allows it?
Yes.
Okay, so just to be clear that it's a previous engagement and it's not related to matters relevant to the scheme.
It's indirectly related. It's Empire Village. It's a slightly different matter regarding a road closure. However, the matter is before the minister, and it's also talking about the potential redevelopment of the shopping centre, which I think the deputation is addressing from Element.
My advice would be to step out of the meeting, but I will put it to the members in case there is a different view. Yeah, I think the opinion is to step out of the meeting.
I'm fine, thank you.
Yeah. All right, are there any further declarations of interest from members? Thank you very much. And any disclosures of representation of the items before us today? Thank you very much. Item 1.5, declaration of due consideration. Can all members indicate that they have received and considered the agenda ahead of today's meeting? Thank you all. And we now have some, and also just noting that we have had some additional information for members following questions from the briefing, and that they are provided in the agenda before us. It also includes a table of amendments that the applicant, in relation to 11B application, is seeking. So just to draw your attention to that, also under 1.5.1 attachment 2. Now we do have a series of minutes, because we had 3 SPC meetings in a row. So we do have a series of minutes to work through. So what I might do is just to say to members, are there any issues with any of the minutes that you wish to raise for discussion? We're happy to just move through them all sequentially. Thank you. So we've got the confirmation of the previous minutes of Wednesday, the 7th of May. Can I please have a mover and seconder? Moved by Commissioner Herron, seconded by Member Knight. Any dissent? Thank you very much. Confirmation of the previous minutes of Wednesday, the 14th of May. Moved by Commissioner Heron, seconded by Commissioner Knight. Thank you very much. Any dissent? No. And confirmation of the previous minutes of Wednesday, the 21st of May. Moved by Commissioner Heron, seconded by Commissioner Lakey. Thank you very much. Any dissent? Thank you. The minutes are all carried. We will now move to deputations and presentations, and I will hand over to Sam. Thank you, Sam.
Good morning to all those that are present in order to make a deputation to the Statutory Planning Committee meeting today, either in person or via Zoom. You'll be invited to join the table to deliver your deputation or promoted to a panelist via Zoom this morning. You have been advised of your allocated time, which will be managed by a timer which will appear on the screen and count down that allocated time. If you do have a PowerPoint presentation this morning, this will be displayed on the screen and you're requested to advise us as you wish to advance the slides. Moving to the first deputation on the agenda this morning, which is on item 3.1 on the agenda, the Part 11B development application for multiple dwellings, community housing at lot 223, number 18, Brown Street in Busselton. We're welcoming Gary Barbour from the City of Busselton via Zoom. Good morning.
Can you hear me?
I can. Good morning, Bethany. I can hear you. If you wouldn't mind turning on your video, that would be appreciated so you may participate in the meeting.
Yeah.
There we go.
Apologies, Gary Barber's actually unwell. My name is Joanna Wilson and I'm the Manager for Planning and Development here at the City of Busselton.
Welcome, Joanna, and sorry to hear that Gary is unwell. We'll bring up your PowerPoint presentation now and invite you to commence the deputation. Thank you.
Thank you. Next slide, please. So the proposed development is located within the regional centre with an ROC3 density applicable for residential development. It's generally consistent with the objectives of the zone as set out in the City of Busselton Local Planning Scheme number 21. The following objectives are particularly relevant to this development. C, to ensure that the development provides for activation of the street and public spaces, high quality design and a variety of land uses, and D, to provide for medium to high density residential development. The proposed land use of multiple dwelling, which is a D use within the regional centre zone under the scheme, is consistent with zone objective D. The City is very aware of the urgent need for more social and affordable housing in Busselton. The proposed development assists in meeting this need and is located appropriately within the city centre. However, the City does have concerns about aspects of the external design of the building. The scheme designates that height limits and other development standards within the zone are to be consistent with those set out in Volume 2 of the R codes. At a maximum of 4 stories, the proposal is substantially less than 6 stories allowable under the codes. The proposed development is consistent with the overall scale of development contemplated for the site. Whilst the proposed development is considered by the City to be largely consistent with the R codes Volume 2, Element Objective 0410.1 refers to facade design and states that building facades incorporates portions, materials, design elements that respect and reference the character of the local area. The City is concerned that the final facade design of the proposed building does not appropriately reference the local character of the area. The proposed development does not blend with the existing streetscape. Next slide. This development represents one of its first of its scale in Busselton. Whilst we appreciate 4 stories is not significant in Perth, it carries significant weight in shaping the future character of the city. Its location is particularly sensitive as Brown Street serves the key approach to the Busselton Jetty, one of the busiest and most iconic tourist attractions in Western Australia. The visual impression created along this route is critical, not only for residents, but the thousands of visitors who travel along Brown Street each year. Directly opposite the site is Churchill Park, a major community and sporting precinct that hosts soccer, cricket, scouts, guides and the Busselton Trots. The proposed development will be highly visible from this important public space, making its design and materials especially important. Next slide, please. One of the key concerns is the use of red brick in the proposed design, which is out of character with Busselton's established architectural style. The town's built environment, as shown by these slides, is typically defined by coastal-inspired materials such as timber, limestone, and soft natural tones that reflect the surrounding landscape. Red brick, by contrast, introduces a heavier, more urban aesthetic that does not align with the light, relaxed, and natural feel of the area. A major concern is shared by the community and clearly expressed throughout the consultation process. It's the strong sense of disappointment and frustration from the community regarding the proposed development's design. Many residents feel that the use of red brick is jarring and out of step with Busselton's established coastal character. Next slide, please. In light of the scale of the development and the sensitivity of the site, the city requested professional advice from the Southwest Design Review Panel. The panel includes respected experts such as Malcolm McGay, Simon Kilbane, and Sam Brown. It is noted that the feedback provided by the panel is not mentioned in the officer's report. The panel was very supportive of the overall concept, height, scale, and that the proposal was the most appropriate use for the site. However, this slide highlights a few of the comments and concerns raised by the panel, which align closely with the city and community's feedback, particularly around the inappropriate use of materials, the dominant and unsynthetic design, and the lack of contextual sensitivity. Next slide, please. It is the city's understanding that the first concept of the proposal was viewed by the government architect, who provided clear and constructive feedback. As shown on this slide, the government architect encouraged use of lighter, softer limestone colour materials, noting that materials are more reflective of both the colonial built form and the natural geography of the greater locale. However, the second and current version of the proposal differs slightly in both form and material and was not referred to.
Joanne, just to let you know, you are 1 minute 45 over, and we probably do need you to move to your final slide at this point. I think you've made this point very clearly to us through your deputation so far. And we do have a copy of the presentation.
The final slide, just the proposed conditions, essentially seeking the change in the proposed conditions, requesting an update to the schedule of the design and colouring of the texture of the building materials, taking into account the surrounding area and the coastal character of Busselton.
Thank you very much, Joanne. I appreciate that. I think that was a very comprehensive deputation, and because we've had the value of having your PowerPoint presentation ahead of the meeting, we've had an extra opportunity to look at that. I will now go to the members to see if there are any questions of you. Members, are there any questions? Commissioner Adair?
Thank you, Chair. I just wanted to clarify on your last slide, you refer to the proposed condition 3.5 and advice note 5, but that differs to what is on the agenda. So I just wanted to clarify if you're referring to condition 3 and advice note C.
It was condition 3.5 of the city's proposed conditions.
Oh, okay.
But condition number 14 of the SDAU's proposed conditions.
Thank you very much. That's all I needed.
Any further questions? Thank you very much, Joanne. I appreciate you stepping in at the last moment to take that on from Gary, and we wish him a speedy recovery.
Thank you.
The next deputation this morning is on the same item, item 3.1, and we're welcoming Noel Ryan, Owen Thomas, Cameron Leavegott, Rebecca Trapaglioni, and Chris Nolan, who are joining us in person this morning. Please join us at the table. Thank you. Ready, thank you.
Thank you. My name's Cameron. I'm from Urbis. I'm joined with Rebecca, Owen from Development WA, and also Noel from Housing Choices Australia. So Housing Choices Australia, selected by Development WA as preferred proponent to deliver this housing project on government land in Busselton via the Housing Diversity Pipeline to deliver 30 social and affordable housing units down south. First of all, I'd just like to thank the SDAU officers for their positive recommendation and support of the project. I'll pass over to Noel just to give a brief overview of Housing Choices Australia and the process they've gone through.
Just by way of introduction, Housing Choices is a not-for-profit community housing provider. In WA, that means we're registered with the Department of Communities, but nationally, Housing Choices manages just under 8,000 properties and we have 13,000 residents. So as Cameron mentioned, we came to this site through the Housing Diversity Pipeline, which was managed by Development WA and looking for housing outcomes on government-owned land. So the project is funded by the state government through a land grant and also a capital contribution. And this project will also receive funding from Housing Australia, which is the Commonwealth body. That's just all context. Possibly, particularly in regards to some of the written submissions, like all community housing providers, a key activity of Housing Choices is the supportive services. And this is the area of the company where we have a team that looks after connecting residents with the appropriate social services. And this is the objective of providing support, providing connection, and with the aim of that this becomes permanent housing for people. And the company, Housing Choices, provides the resources that allows them to become permanent or to increase their housing choices in the wider market. So again, we support the recommendation and we're happy to answer questions about the community organisation if you like.
Thanks, Noel.
I just want to touch on the planning side of things. The project's a highly compliant residential proposal in the southwest of WA, which will address a lack of social and affordable housing within the state, which aligns with the current government priorities. I note also in the submissions that a lot of people are concerned with the building height, scale and form, and I'll reference the SDAU report again, which was well addressed in saying that the proposal is compliant with the built form controls of the area, including height, scale and plot ratio. The design of the building has fulfilled the design review requirements of the Part 11B process, and the application gained support from the government architect. We received conflicting comments from the Southwest Design Review, and these have not been considered in our application, which were obtained outside of this pathway. As mentioned in our memo that we provided, we are generally supportive of the conditions. However, we're seeking some minor amendments to conditions that relate to the timing of when conditions are cleared, removing the need for certification and ensure conditions are solely planning related. I'm happy to take any questions or talk through those proposed conditions as well.
Thank you. Is that the end of your deputation? Okay, thank you very much. Welcome to the meeting. I will now open up to members for questions.
Thank you for your deputation. Just, I was wondering if you'd be able to respond to the City of the City of Austin's commentary around the pallet.
Yeah. Our architect got COVID this morning, so he did provide us with a little speech. So the architects undertook a character analysis of the surrounding area, as we do with all their projects, and identified 3 zones, being a coastal strip, urban centre and suburban fringes. Within the location of the site and recent density changes, we characterised the Brown Street residential development as part of the urban centre. It's also zoned regional centre under the scheme as well. The red brick coupled with the limestone texture concrete is robust to withstand the coastal climate and provide a bold vibrancy to the area.
Just one thing to add there is that we did go through a government architect process before we lodged the application, and they supported the material palette. So a lot of the city's comments coming from their own design review panel, which we're just getting conflicting comments. So we're kind of just sticking with the process of support from government architect.
Thank you. I have a question. Oh, sorry, go ahead, Commissioner Adair.
Thanks, Chair. Just a follow-up question to that, and then another question. So the drawings that were put to the government architect, were they in red brick?
Yeah.
They were the application, or after we submitted the application.
Sorry, I didn't catch that.
Oh, sorry, it was after we submitted the application. So that definitely red brick went to the government architect, and it was after the application. So there was an earlier version, but that was not part of the application.
Okay, thank you. One of the things that was, sorry, Chair, through you, one of the points that's been raised in a number of the deputations, submissions that we've received is about the location and the appropriateness of the location for this land use. Now, I understand that this is in conjunction with government, so I'm just wondering if you can clarify for anyone that's listening or watching and for us, the process that was gone through, or was there a process in identifying this as the location for this development application, or were there other options considered?
I can probably talk to that. So it was a site released as part of a package of sites about 3-4 years ago by government, looking at opportunities with industry to develop social and affordable housing on existing state government owned land. So in this instance, this is a Development WA owned site, and that was one of the sites put out across various parts of Perth Metro and a number of regional sites to see what, came back from the market. That when Housing Choices did their submission saying, yes, we think we could develop here. So and those sites were also coupled with areas of identified demand for social and affordable, which is fairly straightforward because that demand is fairly prolific right across the state at the moment. So it wasn't specific that this site was targeted, but it came out of that process.
There weren't other sites in Busselton, because the reference in some of the submissions is that the government owns a number of sites in Busselton, but I mean, I'm just looking for clarification. This was the one that was put out, and so this is what you responded to.
Yes. Yep.
Thank you.
I just had a question in relation to the amendment that you're seeking in relation to condition 4, which is to remove the wording which must be managed and operated by a registered community housing provider. We've taken the point in SDAU that there is a planning purpose associated with that wording, and that the development is to be delivered as community housing in perpetuity. So I just wanted to ask you why you've put that forward. What's the rationale?
Yeah, we just didn't see a connection between the land use and needing a community housing provider. So it's not a major issue, it just didn't seem correct from perspective.
Okay, so it's not a major issue for you, you just saw it more as a planning matter.
Yeah.
Okay. Right, thanks for the clarification. Any further questions of the applicant? Okay, thank you very much. We appreciate your deputation today.
The next deputation this morning is on item 4.2 on the agenda, the Town of Cambridge Draft Local Planning Scheme number 2 certification. And we're being joined by David Reid, Chris Dwyer and Peter Atzimus, and they're all attending via Zoom this morning.
You'll need to put me in the waiting room.
Thank you, Megan, I will, thanks.
Thank you.
Madam Chair, can you hear us okay?
Good morning, David.
Yes.
We can hear you. If I may ask that you turn your video on so we may see you on our screen. Thank you.
Thank you.
We did earlier have Chris Dwyer in our waiting room, but he seems to have disappeared. Have you heard anything from him, David?
Chris was online all morning. There should also be Peter
Right.
Atzimus.
That's right. He's just popped in again,
Lucky.
and Peter Atzimus declined to be promoted to a panelist via webinar. Were you expecting him to
I'm
participate?
not expecting him to talk, no, but and Leon Stojmanov from Serona Urban should also be in the room as well. I'm not expecting him to talk either. I just wanted to make sure that.
No, I haven't heard. No, there's been no participation from Leon this morning in joining the Zoom meeting this morning.
He said he was on the YouTube channel. Is that
Okay.
just a spectator channel? That
That
so fine. Yeah.
Correct. Yeah, that's right. So we do have Chris, and good morning, Chris, and welcome to the Statutory Planning Committee meeting this morning. And I noticed that Peter is also online observing this morning. So we'll bring up your PowerPoint presentation now and invite you to commence your deputation. Thank you.
Yes, can we just start on slide 2, please? That's it. Yes, thank you. Yes, for context, our site, the Empire Village site, is opposite Beecroft Park with established vegetation on all sides. There's a 60-metre property separation to the west, 50 metres to the east, and a 70-metre separation to the south of the Boulevard Shopping Centre, which abuts our southern boundary. So density can clearly be established on this site without undue impact on the amenity of the surrounding area. Next slide, please. So the site was identified as a nodal density site under the local planning strategy. We'll move straight to the next slide, please. And under the strategy, the site was given a density target of 100 to 150 apartments over both sites. So under the draft scheme, the town's argument for R100 was because it hadn't done the homework, but the Commission clearly acknowledged it should at least be an RAC3 density. The reality is it should be RAC2 or even RAC1 to achieve the density target. Next slide, please. So MJA Architects has done a full detailed design, but the town unfortunately wouldn't meet with us until after the council had resolved to lock in the R100 density. The town's view is that the scheme should be advertised as R100, and then we do a submission to increase the density. This clearly makes no sense to us, as the community should actually get a chance to comment on what 150 dwellings actually means. Next slide, please. So under the modelling, to achieve the density with good design, you actually need 8 to 10 stories. The MJA plans logically determined that needed was ground floor retail with a full basement car park, 2 taller split buildings above the landscape podium for solar access, outlook and privacy for any development of the adjoining Boulevard Shopping Centre to the south, and an average of 100 square metre apartments with a good mix of 1, 2 and 3 bedroom apartments. And then the last slide, please. And whether you agree with the plans or not, it's really just the math that clearly shows what density should be applied. So the Empire Village site is 4,865 square metres, or 63% of the total site. The total site is 7,771 square metres, and to achieve the density yield of 150 apartments, you need a residential plot ratio of 15,000 square metres, but then you also need to add the commercial of 4,700 square metres. That equates to a plot ratio area of 19,700 square metres, which is a plot ratio of 2.5 to 1, or an RAC2 density. For the Empire Village site, 63% of the desired yield is a density target of 94 apartments. 3,100 square metres of commercial, plus 9,400 of plot ratio for the apartments. You need 12,500 square metres of plot ratio, which is again a plot ratio of 2.5, or RAC2. On height, R100 is only 4 stories, RAC3 is 6, but for good design, you actually need 6 to 10 stories, and that is actually RAC1. At R100 on the Empire Village site with a maximum plot ratio of 1.3 or 6,300 square metres, then take out 3,100 of commercial, leaves only with 3,200 square metres, which is about 32 apartments. Again, the target is 94. So even at only 15 apartments per floor, it's still only 3 stories. Reality is it never actually gets developed. At RAC3 and a 2:1 plot ratio, taking out some of the commercial floor space, you're left with 6,600 square metres, which is 66 apartments. Again, it's well below the 94 target. So as a minimum, an RAC2 density is required with a plot ratio of 2.5 and a height of 7 stories to achieve that density target. So as the whole intent is the scheme is to provide certainty to everyone. So please don't set an expectation to the community of a 3-story development. Tell people up front that at least the 7 stories is required so the community get to comment on it and have time to actually make a considered decision. Thanks, Chair.
Thank you very much, David. Appreciate your deputation today, and thank you, Chris, for joining us as well. Now open up for questions from members. Are there any questions? Go ahead.
Through the Chair, thank you. The area identified within the actual zone obviously incorporates the 2 sites either side, which would appear to have retained a centre zone. Is there any issue in your mind with those other areas which seem to be included in the calculation being changed to a parks and recreation zone or similar reflection of their current usage?
Yes, through you, Chair. Those two sides, there's a big sewer pump station on the western side, which basically prohibits development. And there's a Moreton Bay fig tree and a whole lot of established trees on there. And they're actually quite well used as park areas. So whilst you're fully correct, they are zoned as part of the local centre zone. I think there'll be a massive outcry if either of those sites were actually developed to contain any density. And you're right, they should actually be in a Parks and Recreation Reserve under the scheme. We'd have no objection to that at all.
Thank you very much. Good question. Any other questions? Okay, thank you very much, David and Chris. We appreciate your deputation today.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
The next deputation this morning, also item 4.2 on the agenda, is from Luke Gibson from the town of Cambridge, and he'll be joining us via Zoom. Good morning, Luke. If you can see and hear us, can I ask that you turn your video on so you may participate in the meeting this morning? I'll just need you to unmute. Thanks, Luke. Got it.
Can you hear me?
I can. Thanks very much, and welcome to the Statutory Planning Committee meeting this morning. Luke, over to you when you're ready to deliver your deputation. Thank you.
Thank you. And thank you, Chair, and thank you for accepting the town's request today for a deputation. As you can see from the published agenda, the town has already provided the written deputation for your consideration. And as such, the purpose of today's verbal deputation was really just to provide an opportunity for the SPC to ask any questions it has of the town.
Thank you very much, Luke. It's Emma Cole here. Good to see you again. I'll now open up to members for questions. Commissioner Herron.
Thank you. Luke, going back to the Empire Village site and the zoning, which currently has the centre zone extending into the adjoining open spaces, would you, does the town hold a view, or would there be any objection for those adjoining areas being represented as open space? They're obviously held by the town as I understand it. I just wanted to get your perspective on that first of all.
Thank you. And through the chair, I suppose I don't have a massive issue with the last deputation as it relates to these two flank sites, we call them, so to the east and the west of the core centre. They are assets owned by the town in fee simple. Council has not yet made a decision on the future of those sites, although it is acknowledged that there are some limitations to them being developed for residential or mixed use purposes. And I suppose going back to the previous deputation, it would be the town's preference for the R100 to remain for the purposes of advertising, simply to allow the town to use the LPS2 consultation process to also consult on the work that's been undertaken as part of the town's detailed planning investigations. And that's in relation to both the density controls and the built form controls. It is worth acknowledging that those detailed planning investigations may well result in the town and council ultimately supporting a density of greater than R100, if that's deemed appropriate through the consultation phase. That said, and despite our preference for it to remain R100 for the purposes of advertising, at least initially, if the SPC today does require a modification that aligns with the landowner's clear preference, the town will still be able to and still will finalise its strategic planning work for the site and will engage with the community accordingly. And obviously under either scenario, council will have another opportunity to consider the preferred zoning and coding for the site following the formal consultation period. So it's a long way of saying we don't have a fundamental objection, but we haven't formally considered it at this stage.
If I may, thank you through the chair. I also want to ask in relation to the Newman College site, which was obviously another point where there was a difference of opinion, if you like. Obviously having a one of the principles that's contained within the council's housing strategy is clearly around, I suppose, that more nodal component. Having larger strategic sites tends to better accommodate density than obviously fragmented land holdings. The basis of the concern around the Newman College site, could you perhaps expand upon that? I'm not entirely clear. Is it just purely the historic zoning and the surrounding zoning, or is there another component which we should be aware of?
Certainly. Through the chair, there has been a little bit of history to this site. There was a previous amendment seeking to rezone or recode the land rather, which wasn't supported by council at the time, back in 2023, I believe. And in terms of the current proposition of upcoding that site, it is acknowledged that it's a large site in single ownership. But I suppose with respect, we don't think that's probably enough to justify an ad hoc increase in density coding when there's no other compelling planning reason to justify it. It's not identified in the council and commission endorsed planning strategy. It's not located adjacent Floreat Forum. It's somewhat distinct from Floreat Forum. There's no particular public transport justification that could be relied upon to justify an increase in density. It's simply that it's a school that's going to be surplus to needs and is a large site in single ownership. And the town's view is that that in of itself isn't enough to justify any increase beyond what is the status quo in that local area.
Thank you.
Thank you. Members, are there any further questions? Okay, there are no further questions, Luke, so thank you very much for joining us today.
Lovely. Thank you very much.
The next deputation this morning is on item 4.3 for the agenda of Joondalup Town Planning Scheme number 3, amendment number 16 for final determination. Being joined this morning by Catherine Temple, Rebecca Macario, Graham Catchpole and Danielle Bowler.
Sorry.
Welcome back.
Good morning, Catherine. Good morning, Catherine. Can you hear us?
Beautiful coastline.
It was a lovely coastline image that we did have for a short moment. Oh, we can see you now, Catherine. Good morning and welcome to the Statutory Planning Committee meeting this morning.
Thank you. I'm really sorry about that. We're in a room and that's had some new tech, and the camera that's meant to be on all of us isn't working. So we're going to have to share the laptop.
Good improvising, Catherine.
Over to you when you're ready. Thanks, Fred.
No worries. Thanks very much. Look, good morning and thanks for the opportunity to make a deputation on item 4.3 on today's agenda that relates to scheme amendment number 16 to the City of Joondalup's local planning scheme number 3. Local planning scheme number 3 currently contains 29 areas of environmental significance within public open space. These areas are managed as natural areas and have been reserved as environmental conservation since the scheme was gazetted in 2018. Since gazettal of the scheme, the city's undertaken an extensive review of city-managed natural areas within existing public open space to determine if further areas with biodiversity and conservation values should be reserved as environmental conservation that consistent with those areas already reserved in the scheme. Following this review, the city prepared this amendment that's proposing to reserve an additional 31 natural areas as environmental conservation reserves consistent with those areas that are already reserved in this manner under the scheme. Some key points in support of the proposed amendment are as follows. As I've said, the amendment is wholly consistent with the objective of the Environmental Conservation Reserve under our scheme, and the objective is to identify areas with biodiversity and conservation value and to protect those areas from development and subdivision. Only bushland areas with conservation values are proposed to be reclassified as environmental conservation rather than turfed or landscaped areas. Although it is not anticipated, any future changes to the on-ground situation could be reviewed and considered through a future scheme amendment process if that situation was to arise. There are no proposed changes to how the identified areas will be managed on the ground, noting that the areas are managed based on the condition and characteristics of each individual area. There were no issues identified or raised through the adoption of Local Planning Scheme number 3 in regard to the use of the Environmental Conservation Reservation in the local planning context. A subsequent scheme amendment has also been approved by the Minister for Planning in November 2023 to add an additional environmental conservation reserve, being Magpie Park in Marmion. Again, no issues were raised to the use of the Environmental Conservation Reservation in the local planning context. While the proposed areas are either state-owned or under the management of the city, this should not be a consideration when it comes to the zoning or reserving of land under the scheme. The zone or reserve should reflect the use or intended use of the land, as is the case here. Public consultation on the proposed amendment has demonstrated strong community support, highlighting the positive nature of this scheme amendment that reflects the values of the local community who highly value the careful management of natural areas. In closing, the City has undertaken a comprehensive review of our managed natural areas with a view to expanding on the 29 places already reserved as environmental conservation. The City would appreciate the committee progressing this important and worthwhile amendment to the Minister with a recommendation of support. I'm joined in the room today by Graham Catchpole, who's our Coordinator of Urban Design and Policy, Rebecca Macario, who's our Manager for Strategic and Organisational Development, and Danielle Bowler, who's our Environmental Development Coordinator, and they're all available to respond to any questions if there's any of a technical nature. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Catherine. It's Emma Cole, Chair, speaking to you now. Appreciate your deputation and appreciate you being joined by your colleagues. I'll now open to members for questions. Commissioner Heron.
Thank you. I'm just wanting to understand, I understand the premise of the proposal. In terms of protecting those areas from development or subdivision, given that they are currently reserved lands, is the concern that that reservation or that level of control through its current form is insufficient? Secondly, if I could also ask, you're saying that there will be no changes to management. Are these all areas that are going to be, if you like, fenced off and preventing community access purely for the conservation purposes? So is the conservation represented in how they are managed on the ground or not?
Great. Thanks for the questions for you, Chair. I may start off and then I may defer to one of my colleagues to answer the second part of the question. In terms of whether we consider the current public open space reservation as insufficient to control, yes, that is correct. The purpose of the Environment Conservation Reserve is actually to identify and protect those natural areas, and I guess that's what we're trying to do through this amendment. I'll just hand the laptop over, and excuse me for this. I'll just hand it over to Rebecca Macario, who can respond to the second part of your question.
Thank you. Thank you for your question. So currently the areas that are reserved under the public open space are managed as natural areas. Some of those areas do have fencing around, but we do intend to enable the community to still enjoy those natural areas. We're not intending to further fence those areas off. We encourage the community to appropriately use those natural areas and enjoy the conservation areas, and that will continue. The management would remain the same.
Through the chair, if I, so just a follow up. So I'm just a little bit unclear. So in relation to how an area would be dealt with if it was under its current reservation versus this proposed reservation, I mean, obviously community access would be one element. I'm trying to get to the essence as to the concern. Is the concern that there would be pressure for the area to be developed as a playground? Is the concern that the area would be rezoned for residential purposes? Because there would still be a process involved. I'm just trying to get to the core as to where the concern is based that the usage of those areas will change. Is that a community concern based on previous activity, or is this based on another premise that I'm unaware of?
Thank you for your question. So I think there's two sides. So we would like for the scheme to reflect the current use and the future intended use. But we would also like that extra protection for those areas to ensure that there would be no development in the future. And currently the reservation of public open space wouldn't provide that for us. So is that extra level of protection that we're wanting to have over those areas.
Thank you. And just finally, and I'm sorry, this may be a bit repetitive. So during the advertising process, do you think that there was a clear understanding by members of the community that the ability for those areas to be developed for other recreational or other purposes which would be included under the open space reservation would be precluded under this proposed reservation? And were there any conversations around that?
To answer that question, I'll hand you back to Catherine.
Hello, I'm so sorry about that. Look, yes, certainly in advertising the amendment, it was, I guess, quite clear, and certainly in the response and discussions that we had with our council when we presented this back, it was quite clear that with an environmental conservation reservation, that would essentially preclude the land being used as public open space. And so that included sort of extending playing fields or developing playgrounds and those sorts of things. In identifying the sites, what the city did was we actually looked at all of the natural areas and looked quite carefully at any natural areas where there may be some pressure from us in the future to look at expanding playing fields and those sorts of things. And in those instances, those sites have actually been precluded from this amendment because we specifically only wanted to include those sites that we are very confident will remain as conservation areas in perpetuity.
Just one further one to that, the bushfire ramifications. I'm just mindful that if these are the retained conservation areas, I'm assuming there's going to be permissibility for undergrowth, growth, etc. And has consideration been given to any potential bushfire ramifications associated with that, given the urban setting?
Yeah, thanks for the question. I'm just going to flip the laptop back around to Rebecca. Thank you.
Thank you. Apologies for our tech. So the city has a bushfire risk management plan in place, and we're currently in the process of reviewing and updating that. And as part of that, we've identified all of the areas in terms of fire risk, and we have treatments and controls in place to manage the fire risk, and that is determined depending on proximity to residents and other uses. So the city has a program of rolling out those actions to reduce the fire risk within all of our natural areas.
Thank you very much, Commissioner Heron. I just had a couple of questions. I just wanted to ask what your POS calculation is across the city of Joondalup and if this has any impact in terms of the minimum 10%.
Hi, thanks for the question. Look, I don't have a figure with me, unfortunately, on what the current POS calculation is across the city. I guess this land wouldn't have been considered as active POS in the first instance anyway, and so it won't have any implications on the provision of active POS within the city.
Thanks, Catherine. And I also just wondered, in terms of whether you've had any studies where you've sort of identified whether you do have any TEC or priority vegetation in these areas?
Yep, I'll just hand to Danielle Bowler, who'll be able to answer that question. Thanks.
Thank you.
Hi there.
Hello.
Hello. So threatened ecological communities, so we have used indicative spatial data from the Department of Biodiversity, Conservation and Attractions to give an indication of whether there's likely to be threatened ecological communities on site in these natural areas that we're hoping to rezone. We haven't actually ground truthed and done flora surveys, but I think the majority of them have been identified as having likely or possible Banksia woodlands or Chewett woodlands of the Swan Coastal Plain threatened ecological communities occurring on site.
Okay, thank you. Right, members, are there any further questions for City of Joondalup? Right, thank you very much. We appreciate your deputations, and you honestly did very well with your technical difficulties. It was pretty seamless from where we are. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Goodbye.
Bye. Okay, everybody, that concludes our verbal deputations for today. So we do have a number of written deputations which have been provided as part of our agenda packs before us. We have received 9 written deputations in relation to item 3.1, the 11B development application in Busselton. And we have a range of residents that have responded to us, including the Busselton Area Lake Cane Resident Association. And we see here that they have written speaking against recommendation. So members, will move on then to consider the non-confidential items before us today. The first item is item 3.1, part 11B development application for multiple dwellings community housing at lot 223 Brown Street in Busselton. And we are joined today by Paola De Perna and Paul Sewell. Thank you, Paul. Paul, you've heard the deputation today from the City of Busselton and also from the applicant. City of Busselton has made quite an extensive deputation in relation to the materials and the red brick in particular, and we've heard some responses to that from the applicant. One of the things that has been raised is SDRP advice versus the local DRP advice. If you could perhaps provide some clarification on that, be helpful.
Thank you. Through the chair, yes. The project has fully engaged with the design review process as outlined for the Part 11B pathway. Under Section 171H of the Planning and Development Act, the WAPC has endorsed the Government Architect of Western Australia as an appropriate reviewer for the pathway. The reference to the Southwest Design Review as a result, whilst it may have informed and provided advice to the City of Busselton, was not considered by the department because it has engaged in its own process. As a principle, if a proposal has already undergone a design review, it's generally preferable that the advice that's sought maintains through that same pathway rather than seeking advice from other pathways. So to that end, the assessment undertaken by the department has relied upon the Government Architect of Western Australia's advice as attached in the report.
Thank you. Members, questions of Paola and Paul?
Thank you, Chair. Just on that point, clarify, I think it was a question that Commissioner Dare had, just to clarify that the Government Architect had seen the current plans that are before us.
Through the chair, the current plans have not been reviewed by the Government Architect. The version of the plans that were reviewed were an earlier iteration, largely similar to the proposal as it's presented. It did contain the red face brick. However, the fins and the the lighter components of the development was the subject of the advice, where the colour selection was suggested for it to be modified.
Commissioner Adair.
Thanks, Chair. Paola, can you just clarify that the city has asked for some modifications, seek just more about the character of the materials? Do you feel, what is your advice in relation to condition 14? Do you believe that that covers that appropriately?
Through the chair, condition 14 is intended to ensure that the plans as ultimately approved by the committee will be implemented. At times through the design finalisation process, modifications or minor edits are made, and we don't want to lose, I suppose, the quality of the build. If the committee is of the view to change the materials, it would be suggested that an additional condition be added to address that specifically, so the plans are modified prior to the clearance of the condition relating to materials and finishes. In doing so, the condition that's been suggested by the City of Busselton, we feel is a little broad, and it's unclear as to what would be expected from the delivery of that condition. So if a condition was to be contemplated, it would be suggested that the proportion of red brick, if the concern relates to the proportion of red brick, then that be specified that it's a reduction to the percentage of red brick or the proportion of red brick, and that additional lighter colours compatible with the post-colonial context, which is what the government architect advice speaks to, for the city centre specifically, because we want to constrain, well, not constrain, but at least put some cap around what the locality specifically that we would be looking at to satisfy that condition.
Commission members, sorry, so SPC members, go ahead, Member Franklin.
Yes, through the chair. Obviously there's now amendments of the definition of community housing that I believe is now come into effect. Is that correct? So this development is proposed for multiple dwellings. Has sought to modify condition 4 in regard to deletion of the a reference to a registered community housing provider. I just wanted to get some clarification from yourselves of where you're landing in respect to that change coming into effect, the condition that you proposed in the schedule of conditions.
Through the chair, the condition as recommended stems from the application as it's been submitted. The proposal has been assessed as community housing in the form of multiple dwellings, hence the descriptor and the purpose for the condition being recommended. The term is now defined, and so it's clear as to what a community housing provider consists of, and will allow for implementation moving forward. It's also noted that Housing Choices West Australia is registered through the current register of community housing providers that is maintained by the department.
So in regard to the applicant's request to delete, feel that that's inappropriate?
Through the chair, our recommended condition, it's recommended that the condition be retained.
Yeah.
Any further questions? Let's go ahead.
Just a minor one in regards to the applicant's request to amend condition 5 and the timing for the infrastructure management plan. Do you have any thoughts on, I think the applicant's requested prior to the commencement of work, that be prior to the approval of a building permit?
Through the chair, typically our conditions shouldn't be reliant on a third-party approval process, and so the wording of the condition prior to the submission of a building permit application has considered that fact. If the committee is of the mind to modify that condition, then it would be suggested that prior to the commencement of site works that it relates to prior to commencement of development, because development is defined.
Thank you. Members, anything further before we move to deal with the item? Okay, thank you very much. I'll now see if there is a mover and seconder for the item. Moved by Commissioner Lakey, seconded by Commissioner Harmon, sorry, Member Harmon. Commissioner Lakey, do you wish to speak to the item?
Yeah, just briefly, I think there's obviously been a big discussion today. I think this is providing much needed affordable and social housing for Busselton. It's been identified for many years. It's been known, and it's within all the planning requirements. I think some of the discussion around the design is a bit subjective, and we've seen that in different thoughts that have come through from the design review panels. I take heed of the government architect's advice, and I read that in detail, and I think it's generally supportive of this. And therefore, I am happy to propose this.
Thank you. Member Harmon, any comments?
No, I'll echo Commissioner Lakey's comments, but we'll foreshadow some amendments to the conditions when we get to that.
Thank you. Is there any further comments before we move to amendments? Please feel free to move forward with any amendments.
So I will move amendment to conditions 9, 11, 15 as proposed by the applicant.
Do you want to do those individually or together?
Do them together.
I suggest maybe 16 maybe if you deal with 9 and 11 and perhaps deal with 16 separately.
Sure. So the change to condition 9 is to remove the reference to prior to occupation of the development. The applicant is to provide written confirmation, etc., etc. So the condition will simply read, starting at all landscape and reticulation has been established in accordance with the approved landscape concept, etc. And condition 11 will state, so remove the reference to certification provided by a suitably qualified professional, and the condition will simply read, prior to occupation of the development, all car parking spaces, vehicle access space, access aisles, etc., etc.
Thank you very much. Is there a seconder for the amendment? Seconded by Member Knight. Thank you very much. Any discussion?
Look, I think it just tidies up in practicality how it will occur. I mean, by nature of the process that the applicant will go through, there will be a suitably qualified engineer that will sign off and design these things being approved. So I think it's just a simple tidy up.
Thank you very much. Is there any further comment or dissent? The amendment is carried. Thank you very much. Member Harmon, do you wish to move the next amendment?
Yeah, look, I will, and I guess it follows the same principle as the previous two. I mean, I take the point that a lot of the times the location of air cons and condensers should be known as part of building permit application. But it is typical that it sits there and the condition remains in perpetuity. So my amendment is to remove the prior to submission of a relevant building permit, that the details be provided, and read simply that almost in perpetuity that all proposed aircon, condensers, external building plant, etc., being screened to minimise visual and noise impact.
Thank you very much. Is there a seconder for the amendment? Seconded by Member Franklin. Is there any discussion? Any dissent? Carried, thank you. Right, we're back to the modified substantive motion before us. Are there any further comments? Commissioner Adair.
Thanks, Chair. I did want to talk to this item. Do you only dealing with amendments, or do you want to talk to?
Oh no, I think we've dealt with amendments, and I don't have any others foreshadowed at this point. So please, you can speak to the substantive.
Well, I am foreshadowing one in relation to the materials of the site. Having been to the site, I do feel that, and I understand what the SDAU is saying about the materials and the extent of the location being identified. However, red brick really is not a complete building of red brick is not a character of Busselton, and particularly not in that area. So I'd ask that the director perhaps have a look at a wording while I'm speaking for an additional condition to reduce the amount of red brick in the development, to tie into the character of the Busselton Centre. I did want to talk a bit more about the application in general. This area is clearly identified as an area for transition, and I did struggle a bit when I looked at the application initially, but now understanding the number of development applications that have been considered by the DAP in the area, I do believe that this won't stand out in isolation, and it will become far more in character as we see those developments proceed. In relation to removing a community house provider being tied to the application, I couldn't support that because I think they're intrinsically linked. For this application, it is for multiple dwellings, but it's also for affordable and community housing. So I think that those two cannot be removed from one another. I don't know if Paola's had a chance to have a look at any wording for a condition.
Thank you, Commissioner Adair. Paola?
Through the chair, yes, I've just provided Sam with some wording. If that one.
I'm happy with that, Chair.
Can I just, before I move that, just in terms of the extent of the condition, we've previously talked about what we can condition. Can I just get some comments from you in relation to the extent of referring to the to updating the plans and elevations in this context? Would that be seen as a significant amendment to the development, or would this be quite consistent with what the extent of conditioning permitted?
Through the chair, the test for a valid planning condition in terms of the extent of modification that could be made, pardon me, relates to ensure that in essence the proposal remains the same. The condition as it's worded does speak to the extent of the change, which in this instance is the red face brick. So there's no suggestion that the entire building needs to be redesigned. It's really just the fit and materials that is being altered through the condition.
Thank you very much, Paola. So we have an amendment before us. Is there a seconder for the amendment? Seconded by Member Knight. Commissioner Adair, do you wish to speak to the amendment?
I think I've pretty much covered it. Thank you, Chair. I think those that are familiar with this location and Busselton in general will understand that red brick is not a substantial material in this area. So, and even the pictures that we've been provided in context, I just think it's important for these regional towns that we do try and assist them in maintaining their character as much as we can.
Commissioner Knight, any further comments?
Thank you. Yes, I agree with Commissioner Adair. I think knowing the area well, I think the character of the area is particularly important. So support this amendment.
Any further comments? I'll speak to. Look, I appreciate the intent in relation to the context. I think the issues that I'm struggling with is the fact that it has been through GAWA advice, and that the GAWA advice has really leaned into the treatment of the fins and the colour of the concrete. I do think that we are seeing transition in Busselton, and that this is part of the city centre location in a regional centre. The architect has provided, who is sick with COVID today, has provided some notation around the robustness of the material in the coastal location. And in terms of the entire facade changing, when I look at what's been presented to us through the City of Busselton's presentation today of the white building. I'm not sure that that aesthetic is actually a better outcome, but that is certainly something that I would leave to GAWA advice over mine, and I am reflecting on the advice that has been provided to us. It has not raised the red brick as a significant matter that needs to be dealt with. So on that basis, I have some discomfort with the condition requiring what could be quite a significant change in building material. So that is why I won't support the amendment. Any further comments? I'll put the amendment. All those in favour? Those against? That is carried. We're back to the substantive motion. Is there any further debate? I'll just comment that I'm happy to support this application. We have much needed social housing and community housing delivery in a regional centre. And just to note that whilst the community has raised issues around the bulk and scale, that it does need to be noted that this is well within the density and built form requirements, that it is compliant in terms of height. It could be a 6-storey building. Plot ratio is permitted at 1.5, and this is coming in under that. So I just think it's really important to acknowledge that this is a city centre location, an area that is in transition. We already have the Busselton Hotel, and I know that there are plans to try to attract more accommodation into that centre as part of supporting the new theatre and convention centre that the city is building. So we will start to see transition in this area, and to have this housing located in the centre where residents can get around on foot to all the facilities that they need is really a well located and ideal location. So I'd just like to say thank you for providing this to the applicant, and we look forward to this important housing being delivered in Busselton. Any further comments? I'll put it. All those in favour? It's carried unanimously. Thank you very much. We'll just wait for Commissioner Heron to return. Okay, Commissioner Heron. Okay, we're moving on now to item 3.2, which is a Section 31 reconsideration for proposed 3-lot subdivision at 935 Purdham Road in Wembley Downs, and we're joined by Ryan Shaw and Matthew Talon for the meeting. Look, we do have a report. It's very well considered before us. The detail is appreciated, but I will ask if anything that you'd like to add before questions.
Chair, very shortly, just to reiterate, I guess the crux of the matter in weighing up the exercise of discretion, a layered assessment best characterises the officer report. This takes into account the proposed variation, which in this case is not insignificant in relation to the overall merits of the proposal at 3 square metres, as well as the characteristics of the locality. And in summary, Glen Aldame has a wide road reservation, which will lend to, I guess, a deep frontage consisting with the adjoining development, as well as the immediate locality benefits from the presence of grouped and multiple developments. That's set out in the officer's report in more detail.
Thank you very much. Are there any questions, members? There are no questions. Right, I'll mover and seconder, please. Moved by Member Harmon, seconded by Member Franklin. Is there any discussion? Dissent? Yeah, that's carried. Thank you. Consideration of confidential items. So from move and seconder to close the meeting to members of the public at this point, and thank everyone who has joined us online and in person today. Could I please have a mover and seconder? Moved by Member Knight and seconded by Commissioner Lakey. Any dissent? Thank you very much.